On today's show, the Capitals have won 3 games in a row, and Tom Wilson has scored 5 goals in 4 games.
You're Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, the Capitals are rolling as they have won 3 straight games. As I look back to that first game of the season, that was just a blip on the radar. That was rust at the end of the day. This team is firing on all cylinders, and Tom Wilson has scored 5 goals in 4 games. Who saw this coming? And, just my biggest takeaway from this game is the offensive resurgence, showcasing their capability to score consistently and recover from defensive lapses. This is a different Capitals team than we've seen before. This is not a team that is going to recede into their shell. This is a team that has some pushback. And Tom Wilson, again, with a standout performance, including scoring the game winner in OT. If that didn't have you pumping your fists, I don't know what would. Highlighted the team's depth with contributions from multiple skaters. Despite some defensive struggles, their ability to maintain pressure and generate scoring opportunities marks significant improvement compared to last season. This game exemplifies the Capitals' potential to compete effectively moving forward. And that's what I'll talk about in the show a little bit later. We'll talk about that Tom Wilson being on fire. And it's interesting when he doesn't concentrate so much on fighting and just scoring goals. Great things will happen. A little bit later, we'll talk about how did it happen? How did the Capitals win this time when they lost in game number 1 against the New Jersey Devils? I'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, it wasn't an easy win, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it was an OT win. But just to get it going here, talking about a feel-good moment for the Capitals. I didn't do a show following the game over the weekend, but I was trying to tweet out and keep you guys as updated as humanly as possible. Enthusiasm, excitement abounds this team right now. And it's due in large part to huge additions that were made to this team. And I'll talk about some of those additions and key players in particular. Tom Wilson has been absolutely huge for the Capitals, playing a crucial role, scoring 2 goals, including the decisive goal in overtime. And when you were at home, or maybe you were at the game, if you happen to be in the area, did you see it happening? I saw Tom Wilson scoring that OT goal in my mind's eye before he even shot it. As he was making his move down ice, I saw it happening. And it's just for Tom Wilson, he's in a zone right now. And I think it's playing on a great line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor McMichael. That is lightning in a bottle, and I'm hoping for bigger and better things, and hopefully Tom Wilson can keep doing great things. Hopefully Pierre-Luc Dubois can as well. Wilson has made an impressive start to the season, scoring 5 goals in just 4 games, placing him 3rd in the league behind Nikita Kucherov and Artemi Panarin. That is quite some elite company to be in, and it's interesting. Now, hear this, people around the NHL, if there's people other than Capitals fans listening to this show, Tom Wilson is a legitimate goal scorer. How about you take that, stick it in your pipe and smoke it? all the people that he's just a tough guy. He's a Rempe, he's a Reeves. Do Rempe and Reeves, do they put up the numbers that Tom Wilson does? I'll wait for your answer. Crickets. They don't. So that is why Tom Wilson, I've always believed intrinsically, is a far better player than he's dubbed as. This was a guy that struggled earlier in his career, getting suspended, getting all these things thrown at him because he was a fighter. But at the end of the day, the thing that serves him the best and serves him better this year than any other year I can recall is him concentrating on scoring goals. He doesn't need to be that tough guy. He can be, but he doesn't have to be. Why? Because we have a guy called Dylan McElrath on the team. So he doesn't feel the urge to take on every fourth line guy, AHL call up on the opposing team that's trying to make a name for himself. He's shying away from that, and he's concentrating on doing what he has done really well this year and score goals. In his own words, Wilson acknowledged the challenges of scoring in the league, stating sometimes they're going in and you got to enjoy it. It's a tough league to score goals, so it's a lot of good passes, good teammates. I'm always happy to help this team win, and that is a extra big scoop of humble pie that was swallowed down by Tom Wilson, but he has been engaged and just relished the limelight. He deserves it. We're looking for this. We're looking for the goal scorer in, Alex Ovechkin's absence, and a lot of the players that played here before his absence, TJ Oshie, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, that I have no doubt that Alex Ovechkin will find his way at some point. Last season, it was Dylan Strome. This season, it's Tom Wilson leading the charge. And to be clear here, it's really early. I get all that. At the end of the day, it could still be Ovechkin leading the team in goals or Strome. But what we've seen right now, living in this here now moment, Tom Wilson has been fired. And it's an exciting thing to watch as a Capitals fan. I'm sure you feel the same way at home. And it's not just Wilson. It's not, your average Joe saying it. Alex Ovechkin himself, one of the greatest and will be at some point greatest goal scorers of all time, giving him his flowers. He's good. He got rewarded. And what he's doing out there, Ovechkin told reporters in Newark, you can see he's feeling it right now. Hottest guy in the league. I'm happy for him. And I think everyone's happy for him if you are a Capitals fan. I think that there are probably other teams around the league that like, oh, that Tom Wilson, we had him pegged as just being a tough guy, and he doesn't have any real talent. He is proving a lot of people wrong, and it's a really pleasant surprise for me as a Capitals fan to see him getting it done. And it's interesting, going into this season, there was the thought that Tom Wilson would play on that top line and PLD would center that line with Alex Ovechkin. As it turns out, having PLD, having Tom Wilson and McMichael on that second line is perfect. That is one of the Capitals' strongest lines out there. And I think the other line should take notice. The fourth line as well. We've seen the third line take off, and the first line as well has been playing well. I'm talking about Protas. I'm talking about Strome and Ovechkin. We just want to see Ovechkin find the back of the net. Chipping in, getting assists, and, he did get that goal after it bounced off him and another player and went into the net. But hey, at the end of the day, a goal is a goal, and this team is firing on all cylinders. It's a really exciting time to be a Capitals fan. And, there are certain things outside of our control, like injuries, those things we can't control. I hate to even say it out loud, knock on fake wood, is what if Wilson got injured? What if this? What if that? We can't live in those moments. We have to live in the here and now. And right now, this team is playing some lights out hockey. And I, for one, am loving it. All right, so after the break here, we'll talk about how did they do it this time. The Capitals struggled in their first go-round with the New Jersey Devils, but it was a win. It took overtime, but they got it done. How did they get it done? I'll discuss coming up. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So if you are involved in the hiring, if you are involved in the firing or HR in general, then you need Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So how did the Capitals do it? How are they able to win this game when they weren't able to do it in game number one? And to be clear here, it wasn't a steamrolling. It wasn't that they just ran over the New Jersey Devils. It was a back and forth, and I'm going to get you locking horns and some truly exciting hockey to watch. I would have it no other way. And some people are like, Dan, are you crazy? I would like to see them just beat them 5-6-0. Okay, that would be good here and there, but I like a hearty hockey battle, and that was the case against the New Jersey Devils, who some people say are the favorites to win the Metro Division. It's a little bit early to make a call like that, but that is some of the rumblings out there. So talking about the game, it was a back and forth game against the Devils in Newark on Saturday. They started strong, dominated the first period, but the momentum shifted as the Devils leveled the score. Despite the challenge, the Caps maintained their offensive pressure, leading to a high-scoring contest that went into OT. And earlier in the show, I talked about how I telestrated in my mind. I was able to visualize it to see Tom Wilson scoring that OT winner. That was one of the scenarios. The other scenario I didn't talk about, and that was it going to the shootout and the Capitals losing the game. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm happy that Tom Wilson did what he does best and score goals, and it didn't require that. But talking about the first period highlights, well, it wasn't ideal, with Erik Haula scoring from a sharp angle to put New Jersey ahead 1-0 in the early stages. However, this is the comeback from the Capitals. Washington quickly regained their composure, responding less than 2 minutes later and asserting dominance throughout the first period. Craig Laughlin said it looked like the New Jersey Devils were scared. And I think it was frustrating as it got a little chippy out there at points in the game. And it just goes to show you that the Capitals are playing some really great hockey as one of the best teams out there. The New Jersey Devils struggled against the Capitals. Alex Ovechkin recorded his 854th career goal, contributing to a total of 6 goals from 5 different skaters. Ultimately, the Capitals secure a 6-5 victory. Again, it wasn't a pretty goal by Alex Ovechkin. It had bounced off him, bounced off another player in the back of the net. But hey, I would rather have it that way than the other way around. And a goal is a goal at the end of the day. And Alex Ovechkin knocks another one off between him and Gretzky. Talking about second line contributions, which have been huge. A significant portion of this turnaround can be attributed to the second line featuring PLD, Tom Wilson, and Connor McMichael. Although Dubois didn't register any points, his contributions were pivotal in establishing offensive momentum. Dubois showcased tenacity by maintaining pressure and forcing a turnover, which McMichael capitalized on. McMichael then assisted Tom Wilson, who notched his 4th goal in as many games to start the season. So, wow, that second line is fire out there. Don't tinker with that anymore. It's going to be interesting to see that, Jacob Vrana, someone online said, hey, the Capitals have won all their games since Jacob Vrana has been in the lineup in kind of in a limited capacity. I kind of wonder if they are going to make changes. Would they consider putting Milano in there? And some people, what are you talking about, Dan? Hasn't really showed up on the score sheet a lot. Of course, hasn't played a lot of minutes, but if there is some tinkering to go on out there, I kind of have a hunch it might be the third line. Otherwise, I think the first, second, and fourth line are really good. Or, I mean, it hasn't been horrible. Don't get me wrong. But if I had to pick one line that could get maybe readjusted a little bit, it would be that third line. Further offensive plays following that, the second line generated offense one more as Dubois expertly set up Chychrun at the blue line. Chychrun, I'm loving his game. I hope he can be a Capital for a long time. Get it done. At the end of the day, Chris Patrick, figure it out. He has been a great puck mover. He's a very strong skater. I love Chychrun's game, and I think the blue line has grown by leaps and bounds this season with Chychrun. And I was going to say Roy, even though we just got a glimpse of Roy, I'm hoping he's going to join the Capitals here soon again, but the blue line is looking really good. Chychrun's shot was deflected, landing perfectly for McMichael, who netted his first goal of the season. Subsequently, Alex Ovechkin scored in his unusual manner. A puck deflected off his body in the crease and trickled past Jacob Markstrom, giving Washington a 3-2 lead. And it wasn't easy. There were points that the Capitals were up by 2 goals, and I'm like, they're going to walk away with this. Oh, no. The New Jersey Devils had a pushback under Sheldon Keefe. This is not the normal team. This is a team that cycles. This team is a team that's not going to give up and has a lot of firepower. Offensive patterns, this marked Ovechkin's 854th career goal, leaving him 41 goals shy of passing Wayne Gretzky's all-time record. The Capitals' offensive onslaught in the first period positioned them advantageously, marking the 4th consecutive game where they registered at least 3 goals, something that was a significant challenge last season. And you got to think for Spencer Carberry and his assistants and just the players in general, this has to be a refreshing change over last season where the team struggled to score goals. Talking about last season's struggles here for a moment, last year's scoring was a considerable struggle, with the team often faltering once they surrendered 2 or more goals. In contrast, this is a different season. This isn't last year's Capitals, so let's stop talking about it. This season showcases a revamped Capitals roster capable of mitigating defensive lapses through a high-octane offensive approach. Again, this is a change in mindset. It is a change in roster. Second period shifts in the second period. Early mistakes by the Caps allowed Nico Hischier to score 2 quick goals in just 10 seconds. Bringing the game to a tie at 3 and shifting momentum in favor of the Devs. However, the Capitals maintained their composure and continued to adhere to their game plan. Pushback, tenacity. This is not last year's team. This is not the team that's going to recede into their shell like a turtle. Oh, no. They have an answer. And why? Because they have the players now. And a lot of this is due in part because, well, Kuznetsov is gone. Oshie's on LTI, or Nick Backstrom. They have the flexibility to pick up some big players. They did that, and these new players have been huge for the Capitals. Key defensive plays, TVR played a crucial role in the Capitals' response, overcoming a turnover that contributed to the 3rd goal scored against them. He assisted Andrew Mangiapane, who showcased his skill by patiently waiting out goaltender Markstrom to score the go-ahead goal. And to be clear here, I love Mangiapane's game as well. That took finesse. That was patience. He waited for the perfect moment to shoot that goal and found the back of the net. That is a high hockey IQ. If you want to see a really great hockey player, look at Andrew Mangiapane. Has a little snarl to his game, a high compete level. Not an apples for apples comparison to a TJ Oshie. I think that at the end of the day, Oshie had maybe a little bit of a better hockey IQ, but I'm going to say that Andrew Mangiapane is very close. I like his game a lot. And, you know, I talked about Leonard and all that. We'll see how that all plays out. But for right now, living in this moment, the here and now, Andrew Mangiapane has been a great player as well. Talking about later in the 3rd period, Van Riemsdyk contributed again as his point shot was deflected in by Dylan Strome, extending the Capitals' lead to 5-3. The Capitals demonstrated offensive depth by registering goals from 5 different wingers. So this is not last year's Capitals team. Let's just put that in the garbage can, the recycle bin if you're a green person out there, and let's just concentrate on this new team and how they're getting it done. I'm loving it. There's not a lot to not like. I think that if I had to pick one thing, the power play, well, that could definitely use some work, and I'll discuss some of those struggles straight ahead. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And, there's a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday for that matter. And sometimes you're interested in the games and sometimes you're not. And even if you're interested in the game, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game, and all of a sudden, all the games got that much more exciting. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I've sung the praises of the Capitals all podcast long, talking about what's worked well, talking about winning games, talking about Tom Wilson playing great out there. But this is a team that could use some work as well, and that's okay. The greatest teams out there can use work, and the Capitals, well, they're no exception. Talking about defensive issues, despite establishing two separate two-goal leads, their inadequate puck management and defensive lapses allowed the Devils to claw back into the game in the third period. Following a rebound to a 5-3 advantage, Washington relinquished control as the Devils capitalized on their mistakes. Why? Well, I'm going to say that it's partially the Capitals, and part of it is that the Devils, well, they're just really, really good. And the thing of it is if you're going to be a great hockey team, you're going to have to play well against all of the teams out there. So not a perfect game by any means. The Capitals definitely did let the Devils into the game. If it would have gone to OT and the Devils, in fact, won the game, it would be quite a bit of a different feeling right now, just based on the fact that the Capitals had the lead a couple different times by 2 goals, and they gave up the lead. So definitely something that they need to work on. Talking about late game tensions, Nico Hischier executed an effective odd man rush, setting up Dawson Mercer for a crucial goal that narrowed the deficit to 5-4. Later, Dougie Hamilton, this is what I'm talking about, scoring in waves, leveled the score with a power play goal, delivering a shot that navigated through defensive traffic and bypassed a screened netminder. So it was not an ideal situation for the Capitals at points. I mean, there was points that I loved the game. There was points that, you're on the power play, find the back of the net, do those things. But if I'm going to generalize, if I'm going to paint it with a broad brush, that's about a 3 or 4 inch brush if you're a painter out there, that the Capitals played rather well. And, if I had to pick the things to clean up, that's what the things I'd clean up. I'd work on the power play, and I'd work on keeping a lead. There were many points that the Capitals could have definitely put the boot down on the Devils, and they let them back in the game. And again, like I said, some of that is just that the Devils are a really good team, but at the end of the day, the Capitals have got to find a way to overcome. They did. And I'm thankful for that because, it could have gone the other way, but it didn't. And, you could play the woulda, shoulda, coulda all day long. The Capitals won this game in OT with Tom Wilson, and this team is firing on all cylinders. Now, as far as the rest of the week is concerned, the Capitals have back-to-backs with the Flyers. That's going to be interesting as well. John Tortorella pushing the buttons, pulling the strings as a team that I think is going to be better in time. Am I going to say it's going to be this year? We'll see, but I know that team is trending in a good direction. They have a lot of ingredients in the pot, and John Tortorella's stirring it, sticking his finger in it every once in a while. It needs a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. I think that the Flyers are going to be a really good team in years to come. And talking about players other than on the big team, if the Capitals do need to draw into depth at any point, even Miroshnichenko has scored 5 goals in 5 goals in 5 games to start his season with Hershey. He just scored on a PP here in the last game. So quite a game, all things considered, for Ivan Miroshnichenko, a guy that kind of just barely missed the final roster. He was right there, and I think at some point we will see Ivan Miroshnichenko, whether it is because of inconsistent play or injury or something of that nature, that his game has grown tremendously. So I would expect to see him at some point this season. But to put a bow on this show, all things considered, a great a team victory. You know, you take a look at it, it did require OT. They did give up the lead at points during the game, but they walked away from it victorious. And walking away from it victorious is the biggest battle. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that are listening on the audio side and watching this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.